Steel City. Is everybody ready to go? Let's proclaim the greatest radio show.
Welcome, fans, to another episode of The Spread. This is your guest host, Big Easy, in the studio with senior baseball analysts J Dash and JK47. We're here to continue our talk on the NL East. We already broke down the Philadelphia Phillies. We said they pretty much had a solid rotation, a young core of pitchers that could keep them competitive. We already spoke about Miami Marlins. Basically, they have one of the best pitchers and a pure ace.
Believe it.
And, pitching means a lot. Now we're going to have to break down for you the Atlanta Braves. There's just not much to say.
Well, sort of like the Philadelphia Phillies, they're kind of in a rebuild mode. But they made a ton of moves this offseason. They signed infielder Gordon Beckham. That's JK47's favorite player. They signed starting pitcher Bud Norris, relief pitcher Alexi Agondo, outfielder Jeff Francoeur to a minor league deal, utility infielder Kelly Johnson. They re-signed A.J. Przinsky. They signed catcher Tyler Flowers. They signed pitcher Cal Kendrick, pitcher Julius Chassin, relief pitcher Carlos Torres, pitcher Phil Koch. He's another relief pitcher. Now, that's a ton of signings. Who's the best signing, though, 47? Bud Norris?
Well,
Gordon Beckham?
These
that
are
one's for AJ.
These are simply stopgap people
definitely.
to fill in positions. I mean, they're not really looking to contend this year. I mean, in all reality, you're looking get another 2, maybe 3 years for this team. I mean, they do have some nice pieces in. Getting Endor Inciarte, he was nice acquisition in the Arizona deal. So, I mean, they actually made out really nice in that Shelby Miller deal. Getting Dansby Swanson, getting
Believe it. Yeah, I really
Aaron
think
Blair
that's a great
also.
deal. Yeah, Aaron Blair, it looks like he could actually start the season in the rotation. And Ender Inciarte, that's definitely a starter right there. And Dansby Swanson is one of the top prospects in baseball, just drafted last season by the Arizona Diamondbacks. They already trade him for what looks like a good starter, though Shelby Miller, he got off to that hot start, and he really fell off later in the season. Not that he was horrible or anything, but he's not that ace, I don't believe. And I think Atlanta made a great move here, getting these 3 players, 3 valuable players for Shelby Miller.
another big splash. I mean, this is how much confidence they have in Swanson. Delta Andrelton Simmons for Eric Ibar. Simmons, you guys know, best defensive shortstop in baseball.
Right.
So
He has a lot of offensive upside, too, though he hasn't realized it really outside of his rookie season with Atlanta.
his power numbers were definitely down last year.
Yeah, the past couple years, actually. But Eric Ibar, he's a pretty good shortstop, but that really wasn't the main piece of the move. It was Sean Newcomb, the left-handed pitcher. He looks like he's going to be an ace. He can throw in the mid to upper 90s. It looks like he is a front of the rotation type pitcher, and that's why they got rid of Shelby Miller. They're looking to rebuild. Get rid of Shelby Miller. They think Newcomb's going to be a better pitcher, so they bring in Swanson. They think he's going to be a better, at least hitting shortstop than Andrelton Simmons. So while it looks like they're getting rid of some good pieces, they're actually bringing in pieces that they think will be better in a couple years. And plus, like I said, Aaron Blair as well could be as good as a number 2 pitcher. Maybe I think he's more of a number 3, possibly a 4 or 5 in the end. But he looks like he should be a part of this rotation moving forward. Maybe it isn't right in the beginning. Maybe he starts in AAA and they give him some time down there and then call him up. But I think what they did here this offseason makes sense because they really weren't going to contend this season. But they made a couple other trades as well. They traded for pitcher Casey Kelly and catcher Ricardo Rodriguez. They gave up Christian Betancourt for him to San Diego. I really don't care for that deal too much. They traded for lefties Ian Kroll and Gabe Spear, gave up Cameron Maybin for him. That was more of a deal just to get rid of Cameron Maybin. It wasn't to bring in these great players or anything. So a lot of moves this offseason. I think most of it was just setting themselves up for the future. A couple of their losses, pitcher Ross Detweiler, pitcher Edwin Jackson, and pitcher David Carpenter. They actually just released him recently. So a lot of moves. You take a look at their roster here. They got Hector Oliveira lined up to play left field right now, possibly. We'll have to see if that actually pans out. Maybe they do start him in AAA. I don't think they will, though. I think this is a very good... He's still considered a prospect at this point, but this was a Cuban defector, and he has a lot of offensive upside. He was actually a third baseman. He can still play third base maybe, but it looks like he's going to be an outfielder. And then, like we mentioned, Ender Inciarte in center field is a pretty good player as well. And Nick Markakis has always been a solid player, if not spectacular as well. So your outfield doesn't necessarily look terrible. In fact, I think Hector Olivera can be a very good player.
You got to be alarmed with Markakis, though. Only the 3 home runs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the power, I think you just don't expect power from him anymore. I think you just expect him to be more of a solid hitter.
I mean, I definitely like the 296 average. Like, he was definitely solid last year. 38 doubles wasn't bad either. Just a drop of power might be a little bit alarming, that's all.
Yeah, I just don't think the power's there. I don't think you should expect power from him anymore, to tell you the truth. But I mean, he's still a good player, and he can score runs. How many runs did he have last season?
73.
Say 73 runs. I think I'll take that. Although you do want more power out of your outfield, you're correct on that. But I mean, for a team that's rebuilding, you take a look at this outfield, it doesn't look too bad at this point. You also have an outfielder in the minor league system you might see this season, Malik Smith. He's 22 years old, had 57 stolen bases between AA and AAA combined last season, hit 306 with a 373 on base. He doesn't have much power, but obviously he has blazing speed and he makes great contact as well. He's a good hitter and he plays good defense, has speed. I think this is more their future and should be in the outfield maybe as early as this season if Markakis doesn't work out like you said. Or even if Hector Olivera doesn't work out. I mean, he still has to prove himself as well. But they got Michael Bourne as well still and Emilio Bonifacio. So they have options here in the outfield. They actually could play Nick Swisher in the outfield as well.
You could forget about Nick Swisher.
Nick Swisher.
Nick Sweezy.
I don't think he's that great of a player anymore either, to tell you the truth.
Oh, not at all.
But at third base, right now, it looks like Adonis Garcia. He did play for him last season, and he looked like a pretty decent player. Hit 277, but only had a 293 on base, just 5 walks compared to 35 Ks and 191 at-bats. But he did have 10 home runs. So, I mean, you put that over 600 at-bats, he's a 30 home run hitter. So you could give him a chance and see if he can turn into a big power bat. But I wouldn't expect too much out of him. I don't think he's going to be a beast or anything. And he's already, 30 years old or something, I believe. This is a Cuban defector as well.
Cuba.
So,
we have relations now.
Well, that doesn't mean this guy's going to be any better.
Well, we'll find out.
Gordon Beckham, Kelly Johnson, like I was saying. So you have a couple options here. They do have a guy in the minors named Rio Ruiz. I don't know about this guy. Listen, he had a huge season a couple years ago, and then last season he just looked terrible. So we'll have to see. I mean, he came over from the Houston Astros system, and I had high expectations for him coming over to Atlanta, but he just put together a miserable season last year, and I don't know if he's even going to be able to ever crack this roster unless he really picks it up this season. So I think they have some work to do it here at third base. Obviously, like you said, they lost Simmons. They have Ibar at shortstop now. I mean, that's a good shortstop to have. But Dansby Swanson's their future, obviously. Like I said, a top prospect, does everything well, can hit, has some power, has a little bit of speed. But, I mean, he got to show it in the minor leagues first. I mean, he hasn't got much play yet just because he was drafted last season. How about second base, though? Do you like Jace Peterson? Are you big on this guy?
I mean,
he had some up. I mean, he's still young, has some upside. 25 years old right now.
Oh, 120 strikeouts, 56 walks last year, typical of a young guy.
The 56 walks ain't too bad, actually.
No, it's not. I mean, he has a little bit of gap power. I mean, not much overall power.
Has a little bit of speed for you. He really got to pick his average up, though, if he wants to stick in this lineup. You can't get a 240 average out of your second baseman unless you're getting some power as well. And, I mean, he's not going to give you much power either. So I think, Jace Peterson, though, he was in the San Diego system, and he looked like a pretty good hitter in the minor leagues. We'll have to see if he can resurrect that bat. In first base, you can't be mad with Freddie Freeman, obviously. Probably their best bat still.
Well, I'd like to think that if he had more to, because he's coming off an injury season. He was hurt a little bit last year, had a little bit of a down year. Not that he was awful, because he played on a really bad team last year.
Right.
Without his medical history, I can guarantee he probably would have been shipped off too.
I mean, it's possible he still gets shipped off, but he's still a pretty young player too, and he could be a nice core piece for their future as well if they decide to keep him here. Like I said, Nick Swisher, Kelly Johnson, those guys can play first base as well. At catcher, A.J. Pierzynski, Tyler Flowers, nothing special there, obviously. So, I mean, the offense doesn't look that great at this point. I mean, there's no big names outside of Freddie Freeman, I don't really think, unless Hector Oliveira steps up. Like you said, Ender Inciarte is a pretty good player as well, but he's not a beast or anything. So the offense has a ways to go. Like I said, they made some good trades or whatever and brought in some good players with some high upside, but I still think the Philadelphia Phillies have more to look forward to than the Braves do right now. I think the Braves still have some moves to make. I bet you they try to trade Eric Ibar if he has a solid season at the deadline. I could see Ibar being shipped out real quick because obviously of Dansby Swanson. And maybe you can get something else for Ibar, a couple prospects, maybe one of those turn out. I don't know.
Move him to second base.
Yeah, or you can move him to second base if Jace Peterson doesn't work out. I'm sure they're hoping Peterson can be a part of their future as well, though. And then you look at the pitching staff. Julio Teheran, I mean, he has to have a better season than he had last year. They think this guy is a part of their future as well, but he really got to go back to those 2014 numbers he had. But he's still young, so there's time for him to do that. I don't know if I trust him as a number one this season. Hopefully in the future he can be a number one for you, but right now that's kind of shaky.
His velocity's been falling the last couple seasons also.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if he can rediscover, like, how to be a more control-oriented pitcher, I mean, he was good at some times last year. Like, he did put together a string of nice starts.
I mean, he's still a good pitcher. Don't get me wrong, man. It's just that he's not giving them what they seen in 2014 there, and I don't know if he's going to or not. I was never really high on Teheran. I don't think you were either, were you?
I did like him at one point, and then until he just has trouble staying healthy. Fastball velocity down, just all alarming factors to me.
What about the rest of this rotation? What would you do with it? You got Bud Norris, Matt Wisler, Manny Banuelos. This is a prospect. I think he's going to be a relief pitcher in the end, to tell you the truth, though.
Former Yankee.
Yeah. Julius Chassin, Cal Kendrick. Nothing great. Bud Norris is probably supposed to be their number 2 this season, and I mean, I see why. Matt Wisler has some upside. He's still a young guy or whatever. Banuelos, still a young guy, has upside. I just don't know how much. They have this guy in the minors, John Gant. He's 23 years old, acquired him from the Mets. He made it to Double-A last season with the Atlanta Braves and had a 1.99 ERA, 43 Ks compared to 14 walks and 41 innings with him. So he did pretty well, but I don't think he's a beast either. So you're not going to see much this season. Their best prospects are still a little bit younger. You'll see them in a few years. But right now, I think they have a lot of questions in the rotation, offensively. Now, the bullpen, I do like Arodys Vizcaino. He's still a young guy as well, and he closed for him some last season and looked pretty good. They also have Jason Grilli. I'm hearing that he could actually take over the closer's role once he's healthy, and that would move Vizcaino to the 8th inning role. So it looks like they have a pretty good back end there. Jim Johnson, Alexia Gondo, like I was saying before as well. So they have some names here. Shea Simmons is a guy that had Tommy John surgery last season after being called up. This was a reliever in the minors that showed a ton of upside. They called him up real early, though. It was a pretty surprising move, though. I think it was straight from Double-A, and this is a smaller guy. I was kind of surprised they called him up, and he actually ended up going down and having Tommy John surgery. But once they get him back, I think that's another back-end piece they have. So, I mean, they have some names here in the bullpen, and I think Vizcaino and Simmons have a chance to pitch. Well, obviously, Simmons got to get healthy first, and that may be a while. He could return in May, though, I'm reading right here, so he could come back pretty soon, actually. But if they can get Vizcaino to pitch well, I'd look at trading him at the deadline as well. There's no reason not to if you can get something good in return for him, because they need help still in their minor league system so they can finish this rebuilding process. What do you like in that rotation, though? Anything? Teheran, I mean, you got to appreciate that at least.
Teheran will be okay. He'll do what he's going to do. I mean, hopefully it won't be as bad as what he was last year. But, I mean, Bud Norris, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, he's not a bad 3, 4, or 5, maybe. 3 at best, 4 or 5. But obviously, you got to trust him as your number 2. Unless Matt Wisler steps up, like I said, he has some upside as well.
You know, well, the fact that he blew up like Barry Bonds' skull.
And let's not forget, I mentioned Aaron Blair, too. He's obviously going to have a chance, at least, to be in this rotation. But he should definitely be in here at some point this season. I think he has the highest upside out of any of them outside of Teheran, too. And Sean Newcomb, we'll have to see if we see him this season. Like I said, he's a big lefty, has the high upside, he has the big power fastball, and he's expected to be a number 1 type pitcher in the future as well. I don't know if he's a pure ace at this point. He's not in the Garrett Cole, Steven Strasburg type names or anything. I think he's one step behind that, but he could still turn into he probably has the highest upside out of any of these names, including Tehran. And it might be Newcomb, Tehran, and Aaron Blair as their top 3 pitchers here very soon. So, I mean, it starts to round out after a while if you give it some time here, but it's no guarantee that Aaron Blair is going to be a hit either. So we'll have to see. Same with Banuelos, Whistler. These guys, they all have questions, and while they do have some upside, and 1 or 2 might hit, I'd have to believe a couple of these guys won't hit as well. What are you saying with the Atlanta Braves this season, though?
5th place, 64 wins.
I'm going to agree with you in 5th place. I think they lose 100 games this season.
No, that's pretty bold. Who was the last team to win 100 or lose 100 games?
Well, I don't know.
Was it Houston like
maybe
5 years ago or something? 5 or 6
Possibly.
years ago. I could have swore.
I don't really look into it. I don't know.
You know what? Good for Atlanta. Because they are other than the Yankees, they are number 2 on my list.
Why?
I hate it. Well, you know why.
All right.
And because they won every single year.
For a long time, yeah.
Yeah, for a long time. So good for them. Let them suffer. So what did you say? 68 wins?
64.
64. I'm gonna say they're gonna get 66 wins. So
no 100-loss season.
I'm gonna say 61 and 101.
Wow.
Why not, man? I mean, I see some pieces here, but I still want to see it out of Hector Olivares.
And I bet you 4 of those 61 wins will be against the Pittsburgh Pirates.
It's possible. How many times they play them?
Probably at least 8 or 12.
Yeah, I don't know. They'll sweep the Pirates.
Yeah, believe it. Atlanta's missing a few pieces.
Yeah.
Well, currently they are. I mean, but all their moves they're not playing for this year. It's just not going to happen.
Well, how does it get to that point to begin with?
You got to rebuild eventually.
Yeah, everybody has to rebuild eventually unless you're really, really good at it. Or you have a ton of money and you just buy. I mean, even teams have a ton of money, though. You've seen the Yankees it wasn't necessarily as blatant, but they had to rebuild as well. That's it. Atlanta Braves. I don't like this team. I like Hector Oliveira. Everybody else, yeah.
You know, like Freddie Freeman.
He's a decent player. I'm not high on him. I tried to trade for him like 10 times, and that dude wouldn't give him up, and then he traded him to someone else for nothing. So screw Freddie Freeman. I like Vizcaíno though in the bullpen. I hate Jason Grilli.
Hating on Jason Grilli.
Grilled cheese.
He thinks he's Jesus.
Grilled cheese.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, Atlanta, sorry to say it, but our baseball insiders here at the spread think that you're going to lose 100 games this year. And you know what?
I said 98.
Well, yeah. Okay. Everyone in the world says they're losing about 100 games.
About 100 games.
JK gives them about 98. People from Atlanta, if you want to get at us, hit us up on Twitter at bet_the_spread. You can like us on Facebook. Subscribe to that YouTube channel.
Don't worry, we'll say good things about the Braves in the future.
That's right. If you think the Braves are going to lose 50 games, then hit us up.
And win 112?
Yeah.
Good luck with that.
Peace.